Hey everyone, welcome to Sleepy Vlog number 69. My first video for 2017. I did some traveling over Christmas time. I went to England. I really liked the parts of England I saw, which was Durham, England, I guess, what's that, in the north, and then south to London, which I really enjoyed. I'd never been to Durham before. I guess I've been to London like 18 years ago. But yeah, it was a very good trip all around. And in many ways, I felt like England was much superior to the United States as I know it. I really loved the walkability of Durham, and actually London, say, compared to New York, was much more aesthetically pleasing and much more fun to walk around. And yeah, it just seemed a much more livable city than New York City to me, Manhattan particularly. And I got to see my sister and her family and my brother's family and my parents, and got to drag Quacking Duck all around through cathedrals and streets that look like Diagon Alley and all of that stuff. And from a comic book point of view, the big event was that I got to meet LahRasa. Hopefully most people know who LahRasa is and know her through her YouTube channel. I'll put a link below to her just in case somebody's discovered me who hasn't discovered LahRasa or Rasa yet. But she and I have been on YouTube about the same length of time and have been, leaving each other little comments, doing a little bit of chatting here and there on Twitter. We've been on, I want to say just 2 live hangouts over the years. Maybe a little more than that, I'm not sure. And but it was really cool. Like we met at Trafalgar Square in front of the National Gallery, and amazingly, I was able to spot her from a long distance, and I was wearing a brightly colored coat, and so we both spotted each other from far away, and it felt like we just fell right into a great friendship, a great conversation. And all the good things I've thought about Rasa, from meeting her in person, I just thought them 3 or 4 times over. It was just the Rasa I thought I knew, but even better, even more so. Just a wonderful person to chat with. And we had fun exploring a few little areas of that downtown London, and hung out at a coffee shop and went to 3 different comic book stores, one of whom I can't remember the name of, although that might have been the coolest one, and then Forbidden Planet, and then a place called, the name of it is on the bag here. I think it's like Gosh. Is that right? I can't remember now. I bought a few comics at Gosh. I was holding back because it was the end of my trip. My bags that I was going to have to drag through a long trip back to the U.S. were already overpacked. And Rasa gave me some gifts. So I thought I'd show you what she gave me. I don't have it here. She gave my daughter a cool moleskin notebook, and she wrote a little inscription and drew a really nice picture of the X-Men sprite. I wish I could show it to you. I'll have to show it to you on another video. Excuse me. It's probably in my daughter's bedroom, and she's recently gone to sleep. But she also, let's see. My daughter read these on the airplane she gave us, 4 issues of Princess Ugg. So these are all beat up now, but they were in nice condition when Rasa gave them to us. And my daughter enjoyed them a lot, and it was one of many things to keep us entertained on the airplane. So we'll probably have to get more Princess Ugg comics. My daughter did say the story was really good, but she didn't like the art style. So I can see that. Kids like a kind of smoother art style or something. Although I think it's a pretty good art style and pretty nice coloring. And then for me, she brought a whole bunch of Terry Moore's Echo, a bunch of individual issues of Terry Moore's Echo, which I have yet to read. And so this is kind of my starter pack to start collecting all the back issues of Echo, I guess. The covers are amazing, which really does make me want to get the individual issues rather than the collection. So I'll just show you, starting with issue 9 and 11. Is that Alan Moore? I love these covers. But I assume that I need to start with issue 1 the way I would with Rachel Rising. Otherwise, I'd dive into them now. They're so tempting. But these are incredible covers. So yeah, I don't know how many issues Echo ran. I have up to issue 29 here, but I have a lot of the earlier issues to fill in. And so that's very cool, because I definitely am wanting to go deeper and deeper into the Terry Moore oeuvre, the Terry Moore backlog of stories. I think that's the last one. Pardon me for flashing them by so quickly. These are really nice covers. And I actually unbagged them to pack them up, because the bags themselves, it felt like my suitcase was just so full. She also gave me King Size Annual of the Micronauts. And interestingly, I mean, Micronauts is famous for Michael Golden art, but this annual is, well, you can see on the cover, it's Steve Ditko. And this is not like one of Steve Ditko's best periods, but I actually felt like there's quite a bit of interesting art that the Micronauts sort of gave him an opportunity to go back to some of that slightly psychedelic stuff he did with Doctor Strange. So it played to his strengths. Let's see. I think maybe my daughter and I will read this because she's very intrigued by the Micronauts now. Oops. She gave me 2 seemingly random issues of Judge Dredd. I think I actually somewhere have the number 1 issue. Well, no, maybe it was a different IDW Judge Dredd series. These are cool covers. Is that Brian Boland? No, I don't think so. Yeah. Anyway, she gave me 2 issues of Judge Dredd. And then of particularly strong interest to me, she gave me this number 1, a Bigfoot, which is a comic book I think I've heard rumors of somewhere. Maybe Rez Reads or someone like that talked about it. Steve Niles, Rob Zombie, and Richard Corbin. And this is what I think of as, this is Richard Corbin ink art, which is just as fascinating as his more usual airbrush-looking art. I think he went through a period where he was doing more ink art, and now he's back to more of that airbrushed look. It's very nicely colored. I haven't checked to see who the colorist is, or if Corbin did his own color. Nope, colors by Martin Brecca and Nestor Perrier. Anyway, this is very cool. I've got to find out how many issues there were of Bigfoot and get the rest. And I vaguely remember that Rob Zombie started a line of comics at some point. Didn't he have his own comic imprint? But this is IDW. Or maybe it was Glenn Danzig who did his own line of comics. I can't remember. So yeah, and in the third shop that we went to, I finally broke down and actually bought some comics myself. Rasa bought some at each place we went to. Um, and this place Orbital had, Orbital and the other one we went to, I think the other one was Orbital and this one's Gosh. So maybe, was the other one Orbital? I can't remember now. Anyway, both of them had 50% off sales, and the prices were particularly good at Gosh, if that's what it was called. And I found some issues of Warrior magazine, the sort of seminal, I think in like 1980, 81 kind of comic, where Miracle Man was first published, where V for Vendetta was first published, plus a lot of other sort of seminal British artists were really showing off their stuff in it. So I'm still missing some issues of Warrior, but this definitely filled it in nicely. Got issue 17. It almost looks like a classic Warren Comics kind of cover. And on the inside, you've got Marvel Man and various other things. Miracle Man, I'm sorry. No, Marvel Man. They changed his name to Miracle Man when he came to America, but he was Marvel Man at this point. One interesting thing I noticed here, you can get UK back issues of this at the time it's being published from Titan distributors. I don't know if Titan was doing comics at that point or were they just a distributor. But the distributors listed for the US include Bud Plant, Capital City Distribution, Comics Unlimited Limited, Diamond Comic Distributors, Glenwood Distributors, Longhorn Distributors, Pacific Comics Distributors, and Seagate Distributors. So that's 9 different US comic distributors. And now in the US, there's one who was on this list, Diamond. So we can see how incredibly different the early days of comic book shops were, when there was a lot of comic book distributors for publishers and comic book shops to work with, and now there's just one. And most people consider that a bad thing. Maybe 9 was too many, I don't know, but and I think there was a big implosion of several of them later on. Some people may be claiming it had something to do with Marvel's tampering of things. I don't know. I've got that history muddled. So that was this issue 17. And then I've got issue 18, which is a completely different style cover. I guess the image repeats on the back and the front. But, more of the Miracle Man. And you get articles about the artist's process. Struggling with this. Pages. Father Shandor, Demon Stalker. And there's your V for Vendetta in the black and white that it was meant to be. Love that David Lloyd artwork in black and white, I must say. And then I got issue 20 with Big Ben, the villain of, or one of the villains of the Miracle Man series. Here's some pretty interesting looking artwork. It almost reminds me of Mad Magazine or something. And then finally issue 21, which has a character that I liked a lot back then, Axel Pressbutton on the cover, who is kind of a totally amoral cyborg assassin, I think. Seems typical of the British comics to have these completely amoral characters. I don't know what that says about England. but it was a fun sci-fi kind of series, as I recall. I want to go back and I'd like to get all the Warrior issues. I'm not sure how many issues it went up to, at least 21. I think I have like the first 10 or 11. So now I still have some more to fill in. I'd like to go back and get them all and then read them all. Big Ben versus the Gnomes of General Zurich. That's weird sounding. Okay. So, and then I just got a few more. So those Warrior ones were £6 was the list price, and then it was 50% off, and that's £3. And currently the pound is worth about $1.23. So all in all, like if I paid £3, it's roughly $3.75 for those. I thought that was an incredibly good deal. And then I got some of these DC horror comics in pretty good shape. At least this one is. For, I think I ended up paying like £1.50. So I don't know, somewhere like $1.85 or something it would have cost me. So I thought that was pretty stunning prices. Now these ones, they're older, but they have, unfortunately, whoever was selling them originally wrote 6p on this one. Now now the pound is worth $1.23. Back then, a 25-cent comic was perhaps worth 6p in England, so it's almost like a pound was maybe worth $2.50 back then, or maybe more. Yeah, this one has a stamp on it for 6p. I assume these were the prices that they originally were sold at on a newsstand in England, although it could be someone put the price on afterwards. And I generally don't love having stamps on the covers, but there you go. Who's this art? Oh, this is Alex Nino art, looking very restrained for Alex Nino. But I thought it was interesting to see that, because I'm an Alex Nino fan. I'm always searching for more Alex Nino. And then they had a bunch of Atlas comics, which are never too expensive. But these were, again, like cost me about $1.75. But they're hard to find, some of them, especially these non-superhero ones. So I'd never seen before Lomax, or it's actually called Police Action, and it's starring Lomax and Luke Malone. And I read it on the airplane, and the Luke Malone story, I guess these stories are like based on, Mannix and Rockford Files and things like that. They're seeming inspired by TV shows. But this is written and drawn by Mike Ploog, which I never knew Mike Ploog ever wrote any stories. And it has slight shades of Will Eisner, and I know that Ploog worked as an assistant to Will Eisner, but with a detective story, with a noir kind of feel. It's very rushed kind of artwork and everything, nowhere near what he probably would have done if he was working for Eisner, or when he was working for Eisner. But still, it's just a nice little tidbit for me. It was quite well written. I thought Ploog did a really good job of writing a kind of noir detective story. And then there was another one which I've never seen before, an Atlas comic, which is called it's called Savage Combat Tales, featuring Sergeant Stryker's Death Squad. I think there's 2 stories in here, and I've only read the first story. And the art in the first story is not credited, but this artist looks so familiar. I wonder if he's one of the old EC artists. It's really awesome, incredible art. And this is written by Archie Goodwin, and it's about this guy who really does not want to kill anybody, but he's an expert marksman. And everyone else has died, but he's freed a bunch of criminals who happen to be put in jail by the Germans, and he's freed them, and so they're his death squad. So if this had continued, I think it would have made a very interesting war comic. I wish I knew who that artist is. I think the second one is also by Archie Goodwin, but I haven't read it yet. Does credit an artist. Let's see. Jack Sparling, and it looks to be an aerial combat story. So anyway, I was really delighted. I mean, it's weird to buy. Oh, this one has a sticker on it for 5p. So anyway, it's weird to buy an American comic and carry it all the way back from England. But there you are. I got a good deal on them. I kind of wish I'd bought even more comics, but I didn't. That was all I bought while I was in England. I wish I had found the time to spend more time exploring London on my own once my daughter was worn out by it. But so it goes. So it was Christmas time, and my daughter, of course, got a lot of presents. One of the presents she got was a big Lego set of Superhero High. Here's actually a Superhero High book. I've talked about Superhero High before. This is the third Superhero High novel. It just came out after New Year's. For why they didn't have it come out by Christmas time, I don't know. But so anyway, I think it's really interesting that now there is Lego about superheroes aimed specifically at girls. So there's Supergirl. There's Poison Ivy, who's a good guy in the Superhero High world. And she has her own Poison Ivy motorcycle. It shoots flowers. There's a flower gun there. And then they also have this character who hasn't piece just fell off. Who hasn't appeared yet in any of the comics or videos or novels that my daughter's read, but I assume she'll be coming up then, is Lena Luthor. I believe that's Lex Luthor's sister. Here she dresses like Lex Luthor in the purple and green, and she's got her own kind of jet-propelled like sky cycle with a little glass there, and there's not an L there. There's an L there's this grabber here. You can actually turn it around. Oh, it doesn't want to turn now. My daughter's done something to it, but and it's got the L for Luthor on there. But what's amazing to think is, because when I first started this channel, and my daughter was 3, and she's now 8, I struggled to find anything I could read with her for superhero-wise. And now there's tons of material. There's all this superhero girl stuff. There's a lot of really good Marvel comics that we read together. Squirrel Girl, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and Patsy Walker, a.k.a. Hellcat. The Silver Surfer comic has a really great female character in it and is really fun. And there are others. And then there's some good indie ones now that are kid and girl friendly. And those just didn't exist 5 years ago. So really, it's comic book wise, things have really gone my way in terms of, in many other ways too, but in terms of the comic book field now producing stuff at a time when my daughter's reading more and more that suits her. So that's really, really awesome. At the same time, one of our relatives gave us this as a present for my daughter, not knowing that this is really about college-age girls and sleeping around and stuff like that. And there's nothing on here that I can see. If you bought the comic, it would have at least said T+ on it somewhere. But when you buy the trade, there's nothing to tell you that it's not a kid's comic. And it looks, very kid-friendly from the cover. maybe under the sticker here. There's a price sticker on the back. Maybe there's something about T plus there. So there's lots of these kid-friendly comics being published by Marvel and a few by DC, but not so many, except for their specific kid girl line. But it's often hard to know which is which. Like, you wouldn't know that Squirrel Girl is completely friendly for kids and this isn't, or Silver Surfer, or some of the others, like Moon Girl. They're not labeled as kids' comics. My small comic book shop has started a kids section, but they just have things like Looney Tunes and Donald Duck there. They don't realize that some of the other comics that they have in the shop are actually very kid-friendly. Or if they do realize it, they have other reasons for not putting them in the kids section. And I've been thinking about, because I've been hearing podcasts and other pundits talking about, is the comic book industry about to take a bit of a dive? And Marvel Comics did badly this year, relatively speaking. And and it would, there's always the fantasy, Marvel and DC won't be so important and indie comics will be way more important. But for now, the way things work, it's still the bread and butter of the stores is Marvel and DC, particularly Marvel. Bad thing about Lego is it's really cool and then the pieces fall off so easily. Oh yeah, here's some more Superhero High. I don't know if I've ever showed these particular ones before. We're getting quite a collection of girl-friendly DC dolls. Oh, poor Harley Quinn's mask is moving. But anyway, so I think because Marvel's sales are slumping, some retailers are worrying that this could be a very bad year. Now I was thinking about, because I'm very happy with some of the Marvel comics, but I don't like to buy too many Marvel comics because they're expensive and feel cheaper than the other comics. And I know that Marvel doesn't want to go back down in price the way DC did. So I kind of made up my imaginary plan for Marvel. I think what they should do, since they don't want to reduce price, but they need to be more competitive, is make a big deal of, we're going to add 2 more pages to every comic. You get more for your money, even though they're charging more in the first place. So I think they should return to 22-page comics, maybe improve the cover stock a bit to help them regain market share. And I think what they need to do, so in my mind, they've done some really interesting things with kid-friendly things like Squirrel Girl and other kind of edgier comics. But their core comics have gotten weak. And what they need to do is, I think they need to think of their comics as being 2 lines, kind of perhaps imitating DC with their Young Animal line. So get a line that is the non-hardcore superhero books, like most of the ones I described, except maybe Silver Surfer, but like Moon Girl and Squirrel Girl, and they could have some little label on them somewhere that wouldn't be Young Animal, but something like that. So they have that line, and then they have maybe some other little label that's hardcore Marvel. It wouldn't be hardcore Marvel, but whatever. That would be things like Avengers and Captain America and Spider-Man and just the traditional stuff that the traditional comic book superhero loving fans really care about, and do a kind of back to the basics positive thing and focus on stories, which is what I feel like the strength of DC's current rebirth, at least has been very strong for me, is just focusing on some fun stories. Not the most brilliant stories ever, but not a bunch of cheap gimmicks either. So they could, if they kind of could distinguish kind of a split, because I think that that a number of their more alternative comics, like Squirrel Girl is apparently a huge seller, and they're doing other comics that are obviously imitations of Squirrel Girl to one extent or another. They just came, it's the unbeatable Squirrel Girl, and they just came up with the Unstoppable Wasp, which was an okay comic. I kind of enjoyed it. And I think because of the success of Squirrel Girl, they've come up with, they've returned to the Great Lakes Avengers, which is also a very jokey, making fun of the Marvel Universe kind of comic. And I think those comics are really good. But I think I already said it. They should have a clear demarcation, a clear line of stuff for, you want back to the basic superheroes. Here they are, the Avengers, Spider-Man, Captain America, Daredevil, maybe Thor. Thor has kind of been very successful going the hipper route. Well, Thor maybe is astride both, because it's good, solid, traditional Asgardian comics, and has that other edge to it of some kind of play about the battle between the sexes and various things like that. But so that's my advice to Marvel. And my advice to DC is to keep on with things like Superman and Aquaman and a number of other very strong things, and very quickly rethink what you're doing with Batman and look at Batman the way you're looking at Superman now. They've successfully rethought Superman, and basically it feels like right now Superman is just about story. It's not about marketing, and that actually has made everybody love the current Superman comic by Pete Tomasi. The stories are of a variety of lengths, and it just doesn't have that calculated just to fit in the trade and just to fit in with whatever the next event is kind of feel to it. And even Action Comics has a bit of that, a bit of switching it up and going here and there, although it goes much more for the long form, stretched out story. So I think DC just needs to fine-tune their rebirth. I think they're doing well. They need to then release their trades very quickly, because their trades they're taking too long to release the trades, and then the comics are coming out so fast right now with the double shipping that the trades are going to get further and further behind. But I think fast release of the trades would drive more people to want to pick up singles, but also just keep the people who do buy things in trades kind of excited over what's going on. You literally could have new trades coming out every 2 months, right? That should be no problem. Or maybe every 2.5 months for these major characters like Aquaman and Superman and Green Arrow, etc. Yeah, so I think Marvel could get back in the game with a few tweaks, and I think if DC holds the line and keeps doing what they're doing, they're seeing a lot of success there. Marvel needs to back off the big events, and DC needs to make sure they don't jump on the big events too much. I have just dropped off of Justice League because of the Justice League Suicide Squad crossover, although I hear some people saying that's quite good. I just didn't feel like risking it again. And although I was liking Justice League, it wasn't a must-have comic. And so that kind of just gave me a good stopping point. And I don't know if I'll go back to Justice League anytime soon. So, I think I'll just say goodnight there. Thanks for watching. How long did I go for? I went for plenty long. I'm aiming for, well, anyway, I always say I'm aiming for something and I never hit it. But hey, you may notice, well, you probably can't tell, but I'm back on my computer. Finally got my hard drive fixed. Got a SSD put in. It's one of these. It's an iMac, so it's got the big glass front, and you can't really change your hard drive yourself because someone has to put suction cups on the glass and pull it off just to get any access to the interior of the computer. And I'm not going to do that and drop the glass front of my computer all over the place. It's a little. I'm less and less enthused about my Apple computers, but I've been with them so long it's a little hard to think of changing. But they are less and less. They give you less and less, and there's less and less you can do yourself with them. So we'll see. Maybe my next computer will be a Windows machine. But I think I've now extended the life of this for quite a while. Okay, well, I hope to be back soon with some comic book thoughts. I hope everyone's having a good new year so far, and I look forward to chatting with you some more.